Longing, Rusted, 17, Dawn, Stove, 9, Kind-Hearted, Homecoming, 1, Telecom. SK Telecom Impact activated. Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of Bodied, the Cloud9 Fancast. Today we'll be discussing C9's amazing upset over Immortals, their upcoming finals match against TSM, and other exciting esports news. I'm your host, havokpus, joined today by...
What the hell is going on, people? This is Periodik.
Hey everyone, PieMagicMan.
Hello everybody, I'm havokpus again. So, last weekend, that was, man, that was something, huh?
Slobber knocker, a shindig, a hootenanny, whatever you want to call it.
It was certainly heart pounding. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. I was actually watching it from my phone because I was doing stuff all throughout the day, and it was stressful all the way through. But I was so happy when they finally pulled out that win. What about you, PieMagicMan? How do you feel?
Well, I was really nervous because I was at work this entire time, and I just alright, let's see what's going on, and check the League of Legends subreddit, and there's no post-game thread yet. It's 8 o'clock already for me. So I finally got to catch a little bit of the last game. I got some time away from everyone else, so I gotta watch a little bit of that, and that was something to watch, that's for sure.
Indeed. So I think the best way to go about this is to maybe look at the picks and bans first, and then we can kind of slowly unravel this whole series. So, Periodik, how do you think Cloud9's bans were versus Immortals' bans? Because in a 5-game series like this, the series kind of adopts its own meta within sort of the professional meta that's already kind of exists. So, what do you think was going on in these 5 games?
Yeah, we definitely saw the prioritization of certain champions for both teams. I mean, obviously, Cloud9 is really going towards that Syndra, which not many other teams are playing. I mean, CLG, I believe, picked it up once, but not really to any effect at all. Jensen has a lot of comfort on that champion. He thinks it doesn't really have many weaknesses, and it has a lot of strengths, so he can kind of play it into anything. And Immortals, obviously, is constantly going for that Trundle bot lane. I mean, I believe every single one of their wins in this series was with Trundle in the bot lane. They really like going for that melee support that can also chase you down, put down a slow, get rid of tank stats, because they know, or at least they assume, that Impact is going to be playing a tank. So they were really going towards that. And then obviously Immortals with Huni, you kind of have your own meta. Like you have the series, the teams meta in the LCS, and then you have the actual game 5. You kind of figure out what the teams are going towards, that meta. And then Huni has his own meta, different from his team. So he was going with the Lissandra, he was going with the Riven, busting out picks that not many people are still playing in the top lane. Rumble, he got a good win on Rumble. But yeah, it looked like Immortals were definitely prioritizing toward a team fight. You know, let's scrap, let's battle. And Cloud9 was kind of sticking with a more 4-1. The 4 can fight, 1 can flank, back and forth. The main trades that were going back and forth was Sivir and Ashe, obviously Rek'Sai and Gragas. Both junglers were sharing that. So it was very interesting to see, you know, the chess match that was the pick and bans in this series.
Yeah, for sure. It was really interesting to watch. I think something interesting to note, every time Huni did play a quote-unquote meta champion, like Rumble or Gangplank, Immortals won. Anytime you saw him kind of deviate from that with the Kennen, or the Lissandra, or the Riven, Immortals kind of floundered a bit because Cloud9 knew, okay, well, we can just starve him off of these more carry-intensive champions and allocate our resources to our more important lanes, and we can just win through that. And they really did seem to do that in focusing getting Pobelter behind, or getting Wild Turtle behind, and stuff like that.
I think Rumble was a really good pickup for Hooney because he not only can he flank up behind, but you're already building a Zanya's Hourglass. And even if you can't get into the team fight, you can throw your ultimate into the back line and still do damage. Now, Riven was actually doing very well in the beginning. He was 3-1 and whatever his assists were. And you know that's kind of a Hooney champion. He likes those melee champions that can kind of trade with somebody, split push, and win in fights. But Cloud9 identified how you defeat him. You wait for the flank to come in, you pretend that you're going to keep with a team fight, and then you disengage the entire team and just focus on that flanker. And they did it literally every single time. So Hooney started 3-1 and ended 3-5. He just died 4 times from getting very bad flank. Well, I would say they were decent flanks, but Cloud9 just played it so well. They isolated him, killed him, and then dealt with the rest of the team.
Yeah, I think after the first game with Rumble, they knew exactly how to coordinate their bans. They would ban out Rumble, they would ban out Karma, and they would usually save that last spot for Vlad or something else to really restrict Immortals' movements throughout the draft. PieMagicMan, what do you think of how Impact played against Hooney? This was a really big match that everyone was hyping up. It wasn't LCS's official sort of matchup of the week, but it was certainly one that everyone was looking forward to, especially after Hooney was kind of trash talking our boy here. How do you think he matched up to the famed Hooney?
It was really amazing to watch Impact play this weekend. Just when he first joined, I'm gonna be honest, I was really questioning if they needed him as a pickup because he was making good plays, but he didn't seem to be quite clicking with the team, and he wasn't that, former world champion caliber that you're expecting when we first picked him up. But during playoffs so far, he has blown away my expectations. He's making these huge plays like 1v2 surviving, just like pulling up so much pressure just to him and not letting the enemy team get much out of that pressure that he's pulling to himself, while Cloud9's able to capitalize on it. And, there might not have been like so many solo kills as against Seraph, but he definitely did his job. He definitely showed why he was a world, like how he helped to win the world champions. It was astonishing to see him play.
I definitely agree with Impact's playing out of his mind, and the stats show, because in this entire playoffs, Jensen has the most kills at 70, but second is Impact at 32. He's tied with Sneaky, and so that's tied, or that's throughout the entire playoffs. Now, obviously, Cloud9's played more games than everybody else, but for the top laner to be tied in kills with your AD carry, that means that he's going off, and he definitely showed it in the matchup between Nar and Kennen when he killed Hooney 3 times in a row, 1v1. It was ridiculous to watch.
Once was even under tower, which was even more amazing.
It was a 2v1. He was facing both Hooney and Rek'Sai, and he still killed Rek'Sai. Or, I'm sorry, he killed Hooney, and then Smoothie saved him, pulling him out of the tower.
Yeah, his play that whole series was amazing. Even when he wasn't doing that well, like when he was on the GP in game 1, he was still dodging ganks and just soaking up that pressure, which is how Cloud9 played around Immortals, and they played it very well. He was pretty much just soaking up all this pressure, and since he's a low econ top laner, it's fine if he gets behind on CS. He's still going to do what he does without really needing a lot of gold behind it. Versus Hooney, who he kind of needs a lot to really go off and do what he does.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Hooney, he's a guy who needs a lot of resources to be able to make an impact, and he's also somebody who's an initiator. It shows in the stats again. He has the most deaths, I believe, of any top laner in the entire league. So it shows that when he's on a roll, it's very good for the team. But when he's making those flanks, like he was on Riven, he ends up dying 5 times.
Yeah, big thing about Hooney is, like, you notice during this set, he didn't pick one tank champion. Like, he's super feast or famine. He'll either go so hard and he'll just help carry like he did on Rumble, or you'll have a game like the Kennen where he feed so hard that we're in their base super early and they're trying to claw their way back.
I'm confused that they don't pick Gnar. Like, this makes no sense to me. Gnar is so strong right now. I played Gnar 2 days ago, and it was like my second time playing Gnar because I don't play top lane. And I crushed on Gnar, and I suck. Like, I legit suck. And he is just so easy to play. When you put the Frozen Mallet on him, he just does so much damage. He can chase you down. He's annoying. He's persistent. His rage management is not that hard to figure out if you have decent communication with the team, and it looks like Impact's communication has gotten a lot better with the rest of Cloud9. So to see Immortals' refusal to pick Gnar or just any other tank in the entire, Champ Shen or someone like that, or Trundle in the top lane, I just don't understand it.
Yeah, just it made their team fights where if they engaged right, they won. But if we got any sort of CC off any of their players that weren't Reignover, like they're all super squishy, we'll immediately take them out and turn it into a 4v5.
I think one thing that we really need to kind of undermine and or not undermine, but look at is maybe Immortals' decision making and their shot calling. You look at how they govern their picks and bans. They're giving Huni a lot of leeway in what he picks. Also, you see in some of the plays that they've called in game, a lot of them are very questionable, like that Baron play where everyone was so low, yet they still jumped to try to do Baron, and 3 of them just ended up dying.
Yeah, that was extreme desperation on that part, and that was a call that they really shouldn't have made. They should have just based and made it back. I mean, Rek'Sai has tunnels around the area. He would have been able to come back, start it up, wait for the rest of his team to come in. It wasn't like Cloud9 was in a position to really fight. The reason why they were able to clean up is because they were all low, and when you only have 3 members, you don't have the extreme damage dealers that you're supposed to have clearing out the Baron. You have the members jumping back and forth, trying to clear aggro. You're taking so long to do the Baron while taking even more damage, and you're already that low. It was just a insane decision. You can tell by how the match was going that they weren't really thinking straight. They were trying to come back from behind, and it just kind of exasperated the game.
Yeah, I think it's always tough to make those decisions when they're behind, or when any team is behind. But I think that just that kind of play, I think that's just kind of inexcusable. Like, anyone can see, okay, we're too low to do Baron, maybe we should heal up first or something. But we've kind of seen a couple of plays in that series where they are sort of maybe not thinking straight. Like, later in that game, Huni was trying to split push and base race when Cloud9 was already in the base, so it was just kind of silly.
Yeah, again, it's bad decision making at that part. I mean, they must have had the confidence thinking that they can postpone and Riven could get the back door, but you don't take that risk when you only have one Nexus turret at about 15% health. I mean, it really didn't have much health at all. It was really 2 shots will take it down, and then you just have the Nexus. And it's not even like you have Baron or, super minions. You don't have any of Cloud9's inhibitors down, so you're just pushing out normal minions. So they're going to be able to wave clear that very quickly, get to the Nexus, ignore you, and just take it down. So, it was just misplaced confidence, I guess, because this must have been a team decision. I can't imagine Huni just said, YOLO, I'm going to try to take down these turrets. So it was just bad decision making on the part of Immortals.
I think shifting gears a little bit, let's talk about Meteos and Smoothie's play in this series, because I think these two were also really key to our success in the series. We had Meteos, who was doing a really great job controlling the map in terms of vision and lane pressure, while Smoothie was making all these really good savior plays where he would sometimes even sacrifice himself so Sneaky or Jensen could live. What does everybody think about that?
Well, First, Smoothie's champion pool for the playoffs has been mostly tanks, and that's worked out really well. I like his Braum picks, and I really like that Tom Kench, since he can get his mobile carries out of bad situations. Since the other thing to look at, Meteos, Impact, Smoothie, all on tanks. That lets Jensen and Sneaky be the primary carry, so it's all set up to protect them. They can tank it out, and you just have tons of damage coming from Sneaky and Jensen. As far as Meteos' jungle play in this series, interestingly enough, all 3 games won were with his Gragas, and his Gragas was pretty on point. Get some nice flash body slams. Even in, I think, game 3, where he started off 0-0-0 for a while, he wasn't doing nothing. He was saving Impact with some nice ults. He was saving his teammates with some nice ults, even if his score didn't reflect that. So his Gragas was pretty good. Surprisingly, though, his Rek'Sai was the games that they lost. Even though that was what he played for the most part at the beginning of the split, it just wasn't as big of an impact as his Gragas was for this series.
Yeah, I feel he wasn't getting the greatest engages on Rek'Sai. It's always the saddest feeling when you're playing as a Rek'Sai. You do a flash tunnel in and you unburrow on like one person and maybe it's their support and you're just like, you got to crawl away sadly while taking a lot of damage. And I feel like that's kind of constantly what was happening to him while he was playing Rek'Sai. But his Gragas is fantastic. What I enjoyed so much was that he was not afraid to invade on Reignover's jungle. There was points of the game where I'm confusing the two. I'm thinking that Meteos is Reignover and Reignover is Meteos because Meteos was looking so aggressive, going into his jungle, trying to take away buffs. One point, it cost him. I believe it was in Game 5. He invaded, didn't have support, ended up getting killed. But then 2 minutes later, invades again. This time he comes in with support, takes away the Raptor camp. So he was not afraid at all to get into the enemy jungle, try to take away, put him behind, put the pressure in, let his laners play, have confidence in them, and then have confidence in his own play. Smoothie was, I love this Tom Kench pick. I think it's very smart. Not many teams play it in NA. People love it in Japan. In South Korea. They play it all the time. And Smoothie plays it to a T. There were so many times where Sneaky or Jensen especially was getting extremely low. Smoothie would grab him, take him away. There was one point where Rek'Sai was trying to, Reignover playing as Rek'Sai, try to get into the Baron pit. Smoothie ate him up, tossed him away, stunned him with the tongue lash. It was a lot of fun to see. He's got a lot of mastery on that champion. So I really enjoy both of these guys playing those tanks. And usually when Cloud9 is winning, it's when they have a very strong front line, and then Jensen and Sneaky can go off, and that's what was happening in this series.
Yeah, I think there was even one play that was even more impressive to me, where Pobelter, it was in Game 5, Pobelter ulted with the Tally ult to zone his team, and C9 was like all clumped in a corner, and Smoothie was on the other side of that, and he managed to stay alive long enough to eat Sneaky after I think Huni Lissandra ulted him, and he was able to keep Sneaky alive for much longer, and that actually won us the fight.
And that was Impact really also did a fantastic job in that trio of supportive type players, the peelers, the frontline peelers, especially on his Echo, at dealing with the back line. Wild Turtle especially. In Game 4, he got punished a few times because he would dive in and the entire team would be there to take him out. But in Game 5, he was dancing. And as Echo, you got to play this very, is the water hot or is it cold? You're putting your one foot in and then one foot out right away. He was jumping in towards Wild Turtle, taking a few hits, backing off. Wild Turtle would kind of try to run away from him. He would jump at him again, attack, back off again. This is making Wild Turtle get frustrated. He can't focus on who he wants to focus, and eventually he gets killed. So it was very fun to watch Impact, Meteos, and Smoothie all work together and kind of disrupt the team fights.
Contribution to this series was the pressure he applied in pick and bans, because they constantly banned out Bard and Karma, and I think that goes back to the fact that Adrian has a fairly weak support pool where the only thing he was able to do was picked Trundle to counteract the tanks that Smoothie was going to play, like the Braum, like the Alistar, and then Smoothie took that away from him. So I think that's Smoothie's greatest asset in this series. And just echoing what you guys already said, Meteos invaded and applied pressure to Reignover, which is something most junglers don't do, and it's probably a mistake, and it's something that this is really Meteos' only contribution. Like, he played okay for the rest of the series, and he himself said that it probably wasn't one of his better series.
Yeah, Tom Kench is definitely a great pick against Trundle, mainly because you're going to try to steal Tom Kench's stats, but he's not a champion that really builds a ton of stats. He worries more about his gray health pool, so your only targets are going to try to be Meteos on Gragas and Echo, and then you're really probably not going to want to take Echo's stats because he can just dive away. So effectively, you only have one person that you're trying to ult. So it was a smart pick on Tom Kench. I really like it. I hope they keep on busting it out because I think it works well with the Cloud9 comps.
Yeah, so I think real quick before we move on to basically Cloud9's next week's match against TSM, I guess really quick, let's go down the line and say maybe who our MVP of this series was. Me personally, I think it'd probably be a toss-up between Impact and Smoothie. Both of them played really well and really made probably the biggest impact out of the whole series. What about you, Headwires?
I think that it's not difficult at all to say that Impact was by far the best player on both teams in this series. The lack of jungle pressure he was given by Meteos is just a further compliment to his stellar gameplay because he was able to neutralize the best top laner in the league and just absolutely dominate not only him but do necessary damage in team fights on Echo and Gangplank, hold waves, split push, win lane constantly. Like, I was honestly thinking that Huni was probably going to win lane or at least go even every single time, and Impact makes me think that this was a completely different player than we saw in the regular season. He was kind of lackluster. Was only good on engaged champions like Maokai and Gnar. He didn't play Gnar once, and I thought that was his best champion throughout the season. And he was dominating everyone, getting to the backline and Echo, and he's the clear front runner. And for Immortals, I think their best player was probably Reignover. Reignover was consistently Reignover. He was applying pressure and doing as much as he can, even with all the fuck-ups that his team was doing.
I think the MVP for Cloud9 this series was Huni for doing that base race. That really helped us out a lot. No, but in all seriousness, it's pretty obvious impact. His Gnar was stellar. He solo killed Huni 3 times, who was playing Kennen. And not only was it spread out, it was like solo kill 2 minutes later, solo kill 6 minutes later, solo kill. So it was pretty rough on Huni. But not only that, obviously the 1v1 play is always impressive, but sometimes it doesn't matter because if you're on a side lane and it doesn't really affect the rest of the game. What did matter was him surviving the Huni Reignover train that was coming in, trying to put in ganks, pulling pressure away from the rest of the team, allowing Cloud9 to kind of get objectives where they're supposed to, and effectively go into the back line and kill Wild Turtle over and over and over again. So clear favorite, Impact MVP.
That 2v1 in the top lane in, I think it was game 3, was like the sexiest thing I've ever seen.
Impact is a sexy man, don't forget it.
What about you, PieMagicMan?
Is there really any question? It's gotta be Impact. Everyone, Sneaky and Jensen, they played good, but Impact was just holy shit.
Holy shit indeed. Alright, well, moving on, we have some news. TSM and CLG faced off to see who would go to the finals to face our boys in blue. And probably to the surprise of no one, TSM easily 3-0'd CLG, meaning that we will have another classic C9 versus TSM final.
It's been so long.
Now, when watching this series, if you could even call it that, I really couldn't see any weaknesses. TSM have been looking really dominant all split. They've only dropped one game, and that was mostly due to just them kind of trolling, I guess. But they seem really strong. Every lane looks really solid. Svenskaren's playing really well. It's really hard to really see any weaknesses in their armor, so to speak. How do you guys think Cloud9 stacks up against TSM?
It is going to be a rough matchup. TSM, the way that I see them, is not as a super team, but as a team that is able to cover up everyone else's weaknesses on the team. So, I mean, really, their only superstar, and some people may get annoyed by me saying this, but Bjergensen is really their top superstar. I don't think Doublelift is like if I'm taking the best out of each region and I'm putting them on a team and I'm comparing them to other best of other regions, I don't think Doublelift as an AD carry is going to stack up against someone from South Korea or whatever the case is. I think Bjergensen can, and I think Bjergensen may even be able to beat them. Hanser definitely not, Sven definitely not, Biosfrost definitely not. But they know how to play around this and cover up those weaknesses, and they know how to play as a team. And when I talk about playing as a team, I mean if something bad happens in one lane, they know how to apply pressure to the other lane. They don't react to what was going on before. They start moving a move ahead. They start going a move ahead and going straight after objectives. And that's why their game times are typically pretty quick, because they don't waste time on chasing down kills or trying to battle or trying to team fight or trying to get a blood for a blood, etc., etc. So I think they're doing a really good job of that. It's going to be rough, man. I think if we play how we played against IMT, I think we'll probably still lose. I think we'll probably get a game off of them. We'll definitely do better than CLG did, that's for sure. You can't do worse. I mean, if we just don't show up. But if they are not having the best time, if we're able to outsmart them in picking bans, then I think we have a chance.
Just going position by position, I think that in the top lane, Hanser is not as good of a player on his best day as Huni would be on his best day, but I think he's far more consistent and wouldn't do something stupid like the Kennen. So I think the top lane will be a little more difficult than it was against Immortals. I think moving to jungle, it will be a little less difficult because although Svenskeren is a high pressure, likes to gank a lot kind of jungler, he is not as good as Reignover, so that will probably make Meteos feel comfortable, as well as the fact that I think Meteos played not up to his standard in IMT, so he will probably be a little better in this series historically, as well as Bjergsen has said several times that he doesn't like facing Meteos because Meteos goes out of his way to not necessarily punish, but just annoy Bjergsen, which is a pretty good quality to have in a jungler, because when you talk to mid laners, they'll be like, who's the best mid laner? They won't talk about the other mid laner, they'll talk about his jungler. And since Bjergsen already has that kind of relationship with Meteos where he doesn't like playing against him, that could be a slight advantage. I think the mid lane is kind of a wash. I don't think Bjergsen has played that great this season. I think the real star in TSM is Doublelift. And I think Jensen mechanically is a match for Bjergsen, although I think Bjergsen roams and fits his team a lot better than Jensen. Moving to bottom lane, I think there's absolutely no competition. I think the TSM bottom lane is a lot better than C9. I think Biofrost, he's not as good as I don't think he's as good as everyone's rating him to be, but he works very well with Doublelift, and Doublelift is probably the best mechanical player that has ever emerged from North America. He's so much better than the rest of the competition in A. The only AD carry who was able to sort of be close to Doublelift in terms of skill was Piglet, and he's now gone. So it's just you have this super dominant lane-oriented AD carry who's historically tried to win games through the lane and gaining advantages through the lane. So I think it's probably going to be a 3-1 for TSM, but I think Cloud9 is going to do a lot better than most people think. Just because it's a 3-1 doesn't mean it's a one-sided series. You can have 3-0s that are extremely close in all 3 games, but I think this is probably going to be a TSM victory.
I got to give CLG a little bit more credit than everyone else seems to be. They did try very hard. They tried to do a lot of rooms and be very proactive, but TSM's macro play in general has seemed to be elevated to whatever move CLG was making that they would counter it. And looking to our series, that doesn't bode well for us. A lot of our games have been slower, more methodical, rather than a fast-paced, aggressive style like Phoenix One had when they beat TSM. As far as if we're looking for lane matchups, I'll start top to bottom. Top lane, Hanser versus Impact. I feel like they both fill sort of the same role. Like, they're both lower econ top laners, but Hanser, in that series for CLG, he was getting so much pressure from CLG and just avoiding so many ganks. Part of it, I have to say, Darshan messed up a lot. Like, that Gnar where he let him go at like 20 health, you can't be making mistakes like that, and I hope Impact won't be making similar mistakes, but I feel like that lane's gonna go pretty even. In the jungle, Meteos, I feel, works better in a team fight with his champion picks, with his selection, his target selection and all, but Svenskeren always has that capability to carry during the laning phase with his ganks, his aggression. So that's going to be very interesting. It just kind of depends on how they play this series. The mid lane matchup, that's going to be very interesting, very jungle dependent, just because Jensen's been looking super dominant this playoff series. Bjergsen is fantastic as always, and I'm very excited to see those two duke it out. Finally, let's go to the bottom lane. As everyone knows, Sneaky is really bad in lane. But that's okay because now he's got Smoothie backing him up. Double Lift is very much a lane bully, but with Lucian coming out of the meta and more of these later game AD carries coming out, such as the Ashe and Sivir, I don't think he'll have as much pressure, but I expect Sneaky to be down a little bit of CS, but not be, completely bullied out of the game. Overall, like I said, it hurts to say. I see TSM probably taking this one 3-1, hopefully 3-2. Like, I want it to go to 5 games. The other thing is Cloud9 has a lot more that they know that they can work on, especially with Reaper. Like, in a close game like that, it's easier to close the gap between the second best team and the top team than it is for the top team to widen it, because as a second best team, you know what you need to work on. You can see it in your games. It's hard when you get a series like TSM versus CLG to see what kind of mistakes TSM would make. So hopefully C9 can take that and catch up and give us a really good series.
I want to really quick and just jump in on the Doublelift being the best thing, because I don't agree that he is by far the best player in NA or even the best AD carry. If you really look at the teams and the stats, sometimes a winning team, you automatically think, oh, every one of their players is incredible. But if you actually look at the stats, right now, Sneaky actually has a better KDA than Doublelift, 6.3. He has less deaths, or he actually has one more death than Doublelift, yet has played 3 more games than Doublelift. His kill participation is higher than Doublelift, and his CS per minute is actually 0.3 less than Doublelift. So they're very, very even across the board. Yet, in your mind, you think because TSM was 17-1, they just 3-0'd CLG, Doublelift must be this god. But he's really not. If you put him on any other team. Now, if you look at the rest of the AD carries, I mean, they're not even close to Sneaky and Doublelift. Like, it's not even